Hello, and welcome to Season 7 of the FODcast, the podcast focused on the future of digital commerce hosted by Simply Commerce. Season 7 promises to continue to bring you some of the industry's brightest minds across the globe as we unpick the sector and where it's heading. From war stories to strategy and technology deep dives to future trends, we cover it all as we continue our journey to have one of the most popular podcasts in commerce. Before we start, if you enjoy our content, please do hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on, like and share on socials.
Welcome to another edition of the FODcast. And today I'm really pleased to be joined by Sander Berlinski. Sander is the Director of Innovation and Strategic Growth for Valantic. Sander, it'd be good to hand over to you to get a bit of a better intro about who you are and your background.
Yes, thanks. So just like you said, I'm a director of innovation at valantic. And valantic is a global SI, so global solution integrator. We're now with approximately 4,500 people scattered throughout Europe. And my responsibility is on innovation, which means that on a day-to-day business, I'm most of my time busy with implementing AI solutions, not only for our customers, but also for valantic ourselves. And the strategic growth part that you said is maybe not only on innovation, but if, for instance, a certain technology or a certain new version of Salesforce or some Google tool comes out, then it's my responsibility to scale those solutions to a mature business line.
So you'll be fully on top of all new AI evolutions then.
I try to be so I have to watch all the trends, see through the clutter and see what works and what doesn't work at this moment in time, which actually quite a challenge. It's the whole world of AI, as you know, is full of buzz, full of hype, full of hysteria, maybe even. And I try to see through the clutter and see what's useful and what's not.
Well, this is it. And actually, this is one of the reasons I was really interested in having the conversation with you because AI is a conversation point every time I have any kind of conversation, a podcast, or just a client call or a meeting. But there's so much, and it's really hard to disseminate what's real, what's actually adding value. So that's why I think the audience will be really interested to hear what your take is. I want to start by just asking if you could, in one sentence, what would be the single AI use case that you think already pays for itself for
Yeah.
Valantic?
Well, we've built an automatic EU Accessibility Act checker. So based on AI, you can check your whole customer-facing e-commerce platform or website for any issues. And it doesn't only check that, but it also is integrated with whatever system you have. So you can directly see those issues and they will be taken to Jira or whatever your tool is to create tickets there with improvements on UI, on technology, on whatever is needed.
And that's a Valantic built tool.
Yeah, it's a Valantic build too. Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. That sounds impressive. And from your perspective, in terms of digital commerce, where will the kind of the magic of AI that we will talk about, where will that be first felt, do you think?
I think there are multiple places. So all the roles and all the tasks that are relatively easy, so to say, that are repetitive, that are not really complex to do. So you will feel it in customer service if you are a retailer or a brand. So you will feel it a little bit maybe in front end development, where you can see that AI can replace already quite some stuff. You will feel it in designing. So the things that are not too complex, that are repetitive, and where you can automate a lot of stuff.
And are you seeing that already?
Yeah.
Particularly the front end dev piece. So are you seeing that already have an uptake in the demand for those types of
Yeah.
individuals reduce?
Yeah, it's insane. I think the most of our revenue right now goes into those design front end stuff, both on the development as in design side, and not only the things that our data engineers, because you need suddenly data engineers to create front end AI solutions, but also what we see at our partners. I think one nice example to mention is I've been to Toronto to Shopify, and they presented their new innovations also on AI. And within their system, within the system of Shopify, you can literally say, hey, I want to have a banner with floating shoes because I sell shoes and I want that banner to not only have floating shoes, but I want those floating shoes to be actual products in my e-commerce platform. And I want to be that the customer is able to click on those floating shoes as a sort of a game. And with typing that in that large language model style, actually works. It transforms it into something that fits your house style, fits your brand, and actually works. So that's pretty amazing, and it's already here.
So that's already available to
Yes.
Shopify customers.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That must change. Yeah, that changes the dynamics completely, doesn't it, in terms of the types of people you need teams?
Yeah, indeed, especially on that, because the products that retailers need to serve their customers is not that different from 2 years ago, but the way how companies like we deliver it to our retailers and brands, that is totally different. And also the people that retailers need to make these things work are totally different. So the composition of your workforce is changing really rapidly, while the output, so e-commerce platform design, A/B testing, data analytics, that's all the same.
Okay. And if we talk a bit about you, it'd be good, I think, the audience to get a bit more understanding of you, because you started as a digital commerce strategist, and now you're responsible for a team of around, or a 1,200 person unit within that AI part of the business. So what pulled you into AI full time?
Yeah, I think I've always been fascinated about new technology, and maybe like a lot of little boys in also gadgets and things that are working but also not working. And I actually, before I was a digital strategist, I worked at the University of Tilburg as a teacher and a researcher on digital consumer behavior. So this is the crossroad in technology and new channels, marketing channels, but also in the way that people interact with those technologies. And that's what I find fascinating. So fast forward 10 years later, if you look at AI, that's still how do people interact with certain technology? Because AI, and especially generative AI and large language models, make this interaction with technology suddenly human-like. And that's what I find really fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. And our research team mentioned to me you've apparently called yourself the marketing joker. Do you care to explain why?
I'm not sure if that's the right translation to English, because as you probably have heard, English is not my native language. But I am interested in a broad range of topics. And if you look at a company like Valantic, we have so many really good hyper specialists. We have those data scientists. We have UI consultants that are specialized in certain A/B testing on checkouts. So we are a house of hyper specialists in certain markets, segments, and technology. But I'm one of the odd ones here because my interests go all over the place, and that's also quite convenient if you are responsible for innovation. So I have an interest in many different topics, from technology, to people, to business models, to marketing. And if you want to ask questions that go real in depth, then I probably am not the right person, because we have a lot of specialists who know a lot about this specific topic. And going to your comment, why I'm called the marketing or the strategy or the sales joker, that's if there's something special coming up, special requests from customers or from end users, and people don't know where it needs to sit or land in our organization, then it probably will end in my inbox. Hey, we don't know what to do with this situation. Can you please help?
Yeah, that makes more sense. I think the translation doesn't quite work, but I understand now.
Yeah.
So we look at the LM piece and the launching playbook. If you're launching a new commerce brand, LM's a table stakes, right? It's got to be it's a fundamental. What would you build differently now from a startup? I mean, we're talking 2 years ago, right? A lot's changed.
Yeah, a lot of change. So what we see is that the most work in making these LLMs work in wherever you deploy them is around making sure that your data works. So there's a lot of work in consolidating data, cleaning the data, and making sure that these LLMs can talk to your specific data. And if you are starting with a new brand, or if you're starting with a new company, then I would try to build that data foundation from the ground up really well. Then you have spend a lot of time to make sure that all your solutions can communicate with each other easily. That data is gathered in a single place in a single way, and then you can deploy whatever data model or large language model on top of that. It makes it a lot easier than with a legacy company.
So when we're talking data from a retailer perspective, you're talking CDP and understanding the buying habits of the consumer, that kind of thing.
Yes and no, because the CDP is indeed sometimes a place where you can store customer data, but I'm not talking only about customer data. If you want LLMs really want to work well, you want customer data, you want product data, you maybe want marketing data. And the CDP is not always the right place to store all those kinds of data. So you need a place like a data lake or data warehouse, or how you want to call it, where you can connect all these different data points on the consumers, on the products, on the marketing channels, on whatever, to one single source where you can deploy your LLMs on.
And that goes back to what you were saying before about where the demand is for resource, so data engineers, data architects, that kind of.
Yes, yeah, there is a lot of change happening. So a lot of these roles were always important, but they were most of the time they were the ones that were sitting in the IT department. And now their data engineers are not only needed in IT, but also in the more client-facing teams, on customer service, on marketing. So we see that at least capabilities, data engineering and even data science are more and more going towards the teams that are customer-facing instead of just the IT department.
And I'd be interested to get your opinion on this, actually. This is not commerce specific, but I listened to a podcast around Elon Musk and Grok, and the next iteration is going to be on synthetic data only.
Yes.
I struggle to get my head around that.
Yeah. I am fascinated by the topic. So when I worked at the university, we were already dreaming of this situation, because if you're doing research, and I will translate it to commerce in a minute, if you're doing research, the more data you have, the better you can see if something works or not. But it's really time consuming and it's really difficult to get a data set with, for instance, real users. So what we sometimes see that if you are, for instance, a manufacturer and you sell certain parts that are expensive, I don't know, for trucks, but you don't have hundreds of thousands of people visiting your e-commerce platform, but you have a couple of hundred, then it's really difficult to do A/B tests on conversion because the sample size is too small. But with synthetic data, you can send synthetic consumers to your platform and run A/B test statistically as it were real consumers. And then the question is, do these synthetic data sets look a lot like if you would have real consumers? And now we see that companies like Elon Musk, but also the research companies that are here, are doing A/B tests. So they do A/B tests with real customers, and they're doing it with their synthetic data sets. And it's scary how close the results look alike of those synthetic data sets as the real human interactions.
Interesting. So that will give the retailers an advantage whilst they're trying to build up their own data sets.
Yeah, so the dream is that you can have unlimited access to data, and now maybe if you're a retailer and you have a decent amount of traffic and you want to A/B test your checkout, then you can maybe run 1, 2, 3, or 4 A/B tests a month, but then you can run 4 a day if you want, because your data set is endless.
Yeah, unlimited.
Yeah,
Nice.
unlimited. Yeah.
Yeah, that helps. That helps. I do find it very interesting. Okay, so you're getting a client on board. What's the first workshop that you run with these clients?
Yeah. Especially if we talk about AI, then of course first we talk a little bit about strategy. But what we want to do as soon as possible is um, see and look at their processes and see where is their waste. And because AI is what I said at the start, really good in automating or replacing or helping with tasks that are repetitive, that are manual, and that are relatively well, not too complex, I would say. So we'll look for those spots where how do you processes in marketing or e-commerce are created, and where do we see a lot of manual or a lot of repetition, and then we are going to look for use cases to solve that.
Okay. And although compliance is generally quite boring, it's something I think that you probably need to address, right? What's the
Yes.
biggest compliance pothole that you're seeing right now that you have to really be careful and help your customers avoid?
Well, there are many, but we see a lot about data sharing. So these new technologies are really easy for individuals. So everybody's using ChatGPT, for instance, and we see so many customers that think, "Oh, I need to analyze my purchase or returns data," and they just download a CSV file and upload it to ChatGPT, not anonymized at all, nothing, and that's a problem. So being in control of what individuals do while simultaneously allowing individuals to experiment with these tools and make their own work better, there are so many compliance issues involved there.
So let's just play that out. If you've got a retailer that has a huge list of all its customers,
Yeah.
it's got some data around their buying habits, and it wants to
Yeah.
analyze the data, it runs it through ChatGPT, but that data then becomes available to anyone else.
No, that's not the case, but it is prohibited by law to share and use privacy sensitive data with whatever external system or whatever external server without any measures. So it's not that if you put in your name and addresses into ChatGPT and I will want to search, hey, what is Tim's name and address? I won't find your address. So they are, in theory, they are good protected systems, but by law, you cannot just put any privacy sensitive data in the large language models.
And then that data is protected as well as that data set is generally protected if there's a data breach.
Yes, indeed. If there's a breach, then you have a big problem. So anonymizing those data sets is needed, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky, because if you are an individual marketer or someone working at a e-commerce department or team, then you are using a large language model to speed up things. So you want to do a quick analysis and not first anonymize it and then all these steps in between. So building a system that allows it for easier anonymization of your customer data allows individuals to speed up their processes and work better and faster and more efficient and effective with large language models.
And are there any clients where your advice is for them to build their own LLM, or is it simply too complicated?
It's really complicated. So what we do advise is to make variants of existing models. But if you want to build your own models, it's expensive, it's complex, and there are a lot of rules and regulations, especially in Europe, around that. So if you want to build your own LLM from scratch, then you have to be a really, really, really big company. We now have, for instance, on local scale in the Netherlands, where I'm from, there you have a company that's trying to build their own version of ChatGPT, and it's tailored towards a government, so a really specific narrow niche use case. And I think they've now spent around 14 million euros, so 14 million euros just for the prototype. So to give you a bit of a sense, what the amount of money is that you need to create an LLM from scratch.
Yeah, it's substantial, clearly.
Yeah, it's substantial.
And just on the last question on the LLMs. So the total cost of ownership,
Yeah,
your clients will want to understand.
yeah,
And if we're all using the same 5 or 6 LLMs developed by big companies,
yeah,
how do you manage that piece? Because surely that is very difficult to keep control of because those
yeah,
investment going in is huge. So
yeah,
the cost, we've already seen the cost go up. ChatGPT now, version 5, the
yeah.
proper top end model is $200 a month. So that's going to
Yes.
continue, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is. So keeping not only compliance but also cost and control is really difficult because a lot of people are using experimenting with LLMs, and also if they are using the API, even though the tokens that you're using from OpenAI aren't that expensive, it adds up quite quickly, and it especially adds up if you're building an agent and your agent isn't well built and it's just keep calling the API over and over and over and over again. So the way that we solve this is with orchestration tooling that allows not only for certain people to build components and spend tokens, but it can also monitor how is the usage per LLM, per use case, per agent, and per everything. And there are luckily also not only custom solutions, but also relatively standardized solutions. And the one that we are implementing quite often at customers is from IBM, and it's called IBM Watson X Orchestrate. It's a long name, but the Watson X Orchestrate does what its name says. It orchestrates all these components of LLMs and especially tailored towards agents, and creates really good dashboard, but also controls roles and rights. Who is allowed to do who is allowed to spend things and not. You can have budget limits, things like that.
Okay. We did kind of touched on this. We're just going to move on to how this is impacting teams and talent, right? We did touch on this. We talked about the front end devs. We talked about data engineers, data architecture. It'd be interesting to know what roles you're hiring for now, or you
Yeah.
think you may need to, that just simply didn't exist.
Yeah. Good question. I'm not sure if there will be roles that didn't exist. So we probably will rebrand them a little bit. So if you were in, for instance, in online marketing, an SEO consultant, you're now a GEO consultant or whatever consultant is needed. That means that you're doing essentially the same work, making sure that your customers are being found within ChatGPT or within Perplexity or whatever solution. So it has a slightly different skill set, but not entirely different roles. We do see, just like I explained earlier, that we need way more people on engineering, data science, and all the other data roles that are needed today. And maybe a little bit less people on front-end design, for instance, or copywriting or other repetitive but relatively incomplex work.
And you said GEO from CEO.
Yeah,
What was the G stand for?
generative AI.
Right, okay.
Yeah, there are different names circling around here. I think there's not a single name yet, but we have now at least called it GEO. And what we help our customers here is not only making sure that if you're being Googled, that the AI overview within Google is giving you as a brand or as a retailer, but also that you are easier to be found in Perplexity, Mistral, Grok, whatever large language model there's around.
Okay. And we talked previously about reskilling people, marketeers into prompt engineers was one of the things we
Yeah.
spoke about.
Yeah.
Are there any lessons you guys have learned from having to go through that process? And it's been probably a quite quick
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah, it's a continuous learning loop. So we've spent more time on learning and development than ever, and a lot of that is just basics on AI. Because if you're educated and you're trained as a marketeer, you're not necessarily trained in certain tasks that are needed for the marketeer of today. If you have been doing that training a couple of years ago. So we're training a lot indeed in the basic like prompting, but also how do these large language models work. We provide a lot of hackathon style training where we say, hey, there is a problem. For instance, you are, well, let's take that example of the designer again. You are a designer and you need to design not 5 ads, but thousands for 20 different target groups within 24 hours. Good luck. It needs to be on brand, etc. So to be able to do that as a designer, where do you start? So before these kind of hackathons, we provide learning about prompting. We provide learning about how does these image creating large language model work. And then we also support them during the hackathon with people that do have the experience in order to have them this real learning by doing approach. And when we have once we have the feeling that those people, in this example, designers, but can be any role, have the right skill, then we deploy them to our customers.
Yeah, makes sense. And if we understand the teams, we understand the change in the dynamic of the teams. What
Yeah.
about the kind of buy versus build? So do you think that pendulum's going to swing once Microsoft and SAP start to release their toolkits? I mean, they're not just going to sit and see what happens, right?
No. I touched upon before that creating these solutions is expensive. We talked about the LLM specific, but making a good AI solution is quite expensive. So the ones who are moving the fastest are the big boys, SAP, Microsoft, Salesforce, Adobe, you name them, Shopify, the ones who have the budgets. So you can expect that even though I think it's still necessary to train all your workforce and also look at what tools can support my use cases right now. If you wait a little bit, then you will see that well, if I look at my glass sphere, 2 or 3 years from now, the big vendors will have a majority of the solutions that you need as a retailer today in their standard solutions or in add-ons.
Okay, so if that's the assumption, how should the mid-market retailers prepare for that, in your view?
Good question, because mid-market is always a little bit in a difficult squeeze because the really large vendors are investing a lot in these solutions, but the mid-market isn't necessarily able to have the best and biggest contracts with Microsoft, SAP, Salesforce, etc. So the mid-market, what they can do today is at least make sure that they look at, again, easily, where is my process going manual? Where can I speed up and generate more revenue? And first try to experiment themselves with current solutions and tools that exist. And in the meanwhile, just play the waiting game a little bit. But I said a little bit because you need to invest already in those use cases today. So don't wait for the Microsofts and SAPs because your competitors will outpace you otherwise.
When you say play the waiting game,
Yeah.
do you mean as a mid-market retailer, wait to see what the adoption is and the successes of some of the big brands with the products?
Yeah, indeed. Because what we now see is it's a storm. We're on a boat in a storm and we don't see land yet. But slowly but surely we see these use cases on agents, on backend dev support. We see them emerging through the mist. But if you are a mid-market retailer and you don't have the budgets to make a lot of mistakes, then you don't want to invest too much in these experiments where you don't know what the value will be that comes out of it. Let Microsoft, SAP, and Google do that experiments for you. That's way better, way more efficient. And the good thing about this time is that all these big vendors are really in a race for the market share. So what we can expect that as soon as something is possible, they will probably try to deploy it. So even if you would have the budgets to do a lot of these solutions all by yourself, probably Microsoft or whatever company will be faster than if you would do it yourself, and probably a little bit cheaper as well.
Okay. So wait, if you are in that mid-market session, just wait and see what actually gets traction and what's working.
Yes, and there the wait is one side of the sentence, and the other one is see. So you really have to make sure that you spend a lot of time following what all these companies are doing, but also try to test their solutions, because unfortunately, a lot of companies say we have the best, the biggest, and the best working AI tool that there is on the planet. And if you actually work with them, you will see that there are a lot of things not as mature as they claim to be. So try to create opportunities for yourself to test the use cases, test tools without having to invest fully in them.
And if we fast forward, so let's say 3 years, 2028,
Yeah.
In your view, what does the
Yeah.
product page look like?
The product page. I think the product page will be highly personalized. And what highly personalized means, it can be in different levels. I think in 3 years from now, I don't think that we will have a product page that is on all aspects fully tailored to your needs. But what I do think is that since AI allows us to create scalable digital assets, so scalable image, text, etc., it also allows us to do hyper-personalization, finally do it well. Because hyper-personalization or personalization in general is something that's been a promise for the past years, but always was a problem. We have a CDP that allows to have all these segments and have a product page that is tailored to specifically to your needs, but we don't have the content to feed all those personalizations with. And now with the help of AI, we can finally make digital assets in such a large scale, like images, videos, product information, even dynamic pricing. So all those components that are promised for a couple of years now by a lot of people that call it personalization or hyper-personalization, they will all be infused in the product base, I think.
And if we expand on that a little bit, I've been talking to clients about what we've branded digital, which is a combination of physical and digital, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm trying to understand is to make the seamless experience. If you walk into a store, ideally you're recognized, they understand who you are, your buying habits, why you might be here, age, gender, all those things.
Yeah.
But no one wants to keep downloading apps on their phone for every store, right? If you look at the electric charging points in the UK, everyone had a different app, and they realized that some people were just not doing it.
Yeah.
So how are you going to create that seamless experience when people walk into a store without overcoming that particular problem, interestingly?
It will always be a little bit of a problem because you are waiting for the consumer to give you the information to be recognized, because there are no systems that do it automatically. So there must be a reason for the consumer to say, hey, it's me and I'm the same person that you've seen online, or vice versa. And on the lowest, easiest level, you can do things like using an email address and combining those email addresses, of using those email addresses to send out invoices in store. So then you can connect what's been bought in store to what's doing online. That's the easy stuff. What we're now trying to do with some customers, and we're experimenting together with a partner of ours who is really specialized into physical store environments and making those digital, is really narrowing the gap between what is online and offline. And one of the use cases, for instance, is if you are shopping for trousers, for instance. And I'm not sure how many times you do that, but I think it's not the most fun thing to do. Online, you see these trousers, but you don't see the fabric, the size, etc. So you want to do it in store, but in store, it's always busy. It's always you have all these employees that are either not available or too much available. So what we now do is we have it's a prototype. We have a place where you can type in your email address, then you can see what products you have liked in your digital environment.
Okay.
And the products that you've liked in your digital environment, you can go to a shelf, and then the shelf, there will blink a light, and where you can see where the product is located in your size and your color that you've selected. Then you can go to the dressing room, because the dressing room is also connected in this prototype, and it's actually built, it's real, you can real test it. So you can walk with the trousers to the dressing room, and then you think, well, it's maybe not the color that I want. And in the dressing room, you can just say, you see your trousers, push a button and say, I want it black. One of the people in the stores get a message, brings you the black one. And then you say, well, I need a size bigger. Size bigger isn't available, but within that screen in the fitting room, you can have it delivered at your home within minutes. So these elevated experience, all these systems around it, that's what I call true digital. And the solutions of today and the ability to connect online with offline, this will be the future, I think.
Okay, so there's a long way to go then for the physical retailers right now.
Yeah.
Then there's a lot of decisions to make for the online only retailers right now as well then.
Yes, indeed, the online only as well, because if you're online only, your business model is a little bit less complex, of course, but you also have less to offer your consumer. So depending on what kind of business you're in and what kind of products you have, but in general, we see that the companies who have both a physical channel as a digital channel perform better, and also pure players who at a certain point in time say, hey, we're going to open our flagship store. You see that it really helps with the increase of their brand, but also just performance of their online channel as well.
Yeah, definitely. Gymshark is
Yeah.
a good obvious example of that.
Yeah, they just opened a store in Amsterdam, I think, last month, and I'm sure that it will definitely lead to better performance online as well.
Yeah, agreed. And one of the problems that retailers face is checkout drop-offs. So do you think AI agents are going to help solve this problem?
Yes, because agents will know you as a customer. So if you're using, and it's not an agent, of course, but if you're using ChatGPT, or whatever model, you sometimes have the feeling that this chatbot already knows you. And this means that it also knows how you want to buy stuff. Do you want to evaluate the price 2-3 times more, or do you just say, hey, I want this product, you have all access to my bank account, and just make sure that I get these trousers sent at home. So talking to an agent, like literally talking or typing or whatever form of communication it will be, that will allow for more tailored checkout experiences, and therefore I think also for less dropout or more conversion, or how do you want to call it?
Interesting. So I know it's a problem that we hear our clients talk about fairly regularly.
Yeah.
What, in your view, the top roadmap must-haves in the next 12 months? And I appreciate the pace of change is very fast,
Yeah.
but what's your view on that?
Yeah, the pace is really fast. So top road map must have, well, maybe boring answer, but start with your data because everything gets easier after that. So top a roadmap, look at all the systems that you have, look where you are storing your data, and make sure you are capable of centralizing the data and then feeding it to whatever system you want. That I think that for most of the even the big, but also the small one, all retailers are lacking in capabilities there, even though they think often that they have it right.
Okay, so data, really focus that.
Data, yeah. It's a boring answer, I know, but it is the most important answer. And well, I think we're both into marketing, and as marketers, well, this podcast is about AI, so we like shiny stuff. We like all the sparkles, but we can only provide these sparkles once the basis is right. So it's really fun about talking about all these AI solutions, but they only become valuable if the foundation of your data and your processes of collecting and storing and sending out the data to other systems is right. Then you create value.
And do you think that applies when we talk about the focus on data to software vendors as well as retailers and brands? Or is it like different dynamic?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of different dynamic, and I'm not sure if it's really if you're it really depends if you're a brand or if you're a retailer. I think it has more to do with the complexity of your company and the complexity of your market. If you are a pure player with a brand that has a single product and you don't have a manufacturing process because it's just buying and selling, then it's a different story than if you are in an insurance company where you have a lot of rules and regulations. So I think it's mainly about the complexity of your company and the complexity of your market.
Okay. And as agencies or systems integrators,
Yeah,
where can you still add margin once platforms bake in AI?
yeah. This is um, a big struggle, of course. So if you are automating things or if you are scaling things with AI, then the first thing you notice our business model that's based on hour rates, day rates, doesn't work anymore. So at first we thought, okay, what are we going to do? Because we want to invest in AI solutions, not only internally make our processes efficient, but also externally. But it's not fair if we have sold something and we say it costs you, I don't know, 10 days to build it. And then we use AI and it only costs us 3 days. And we don't say that to our customer. That's not a fair way of doing business together. So then you have to communicate honestly that you're doing 3 days. But luckily, what we've seen that companies don't say, "Hey, you've asked for 10 days, and you're now doing only three. Give me my money back." No, they say, "Okay, nice. We only spent 3 days, so we have 7 days left to do even more stuff because the work is endless." So at first, we were a bit afraid of our business lines, but now we see that almost every client wants to do more instead of cutting budgets.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if we talk about inference is the new cloud bill. What numbers are you seeing in the work you're doing?
Yeah, I think that especially on AI, well, those bills are increasing, of course. Costs are getting higher and higher, both on traditional cloud solutions as on using AI models. But it's the use of these clouds and the use of AI models in general. It's not too expensive yet. The hyperscalers make sure it's still interesting. But yeah, as demands keep keep going up, then you can imagine that prices will sooner or later come up, especially if you have a vendor lock-in with a certain, if you have a vendor lock-in with AWS, for instance, then you might have some risk. in getting those costs up.
And what are you saying to clients about that? What
Yeah.
levers are available to keep the cost at a sensible level?
Yeah, we always make a business case upfront. So we always try to make that's with the start, because once you have started, then the levers that you have are limited. Of course, you can make sure that you have if you are building agents and if you're using APIs for OpenAI, you can make sure that they are working efficiently. But the first step is about, okay, what is my budget? What do I want to do? Really easy again. And how can I make sure that from the design upfront, the business case works, that I don't get surprised with costs afterward. Because yeah, that's what we unfortunately see, that a lot of retailers are being lured in by vendors with solutions. They have discounted rates on cloud, discounted rates on other license fees. And after years, all these licenses got increased. They cannot get rid of their current systems. They can not get rid of their tools that they're using for their processes. They cannot get rid of their cloud environment. And suddenly their whole margin is vaporized. So calculating upfront with the real numbers, that's the most important part.
But that's not an unusual model, is it? That we've seen over the last couple of decades. You get a client bought into a product at a low price point, and then once they're hooked and it's part of their business, and the price slowly increases, right?
Yeah, indeed. And I think that's one of the reasons why open source, well, it's still around, but it's used to be a lot more used. Now it's more software as a service type of platforms, and there the risk gets higher to get in the situation where cost structure just rises to a level where you cannot afford your build anymore. Or open source is one of the directions and solutions towards that, but the counter movement of the vendors is that they're all moving more and more away from open source systems.
Yeah, but presumably as well, as we saw with SaaS models, that there'll be more and more competitors. Well, actually, we talked about the cost of building an LLM. Is that less likely because of how complicated and how costly it is?
No, I don't think so, because there are also in the LLM world, there are just a few players who are fighting for dominance. And in whatever market where parties are fighting for dominance, so some will win, some will lose. And if you only have, well, you can name probably 5 relevant LLM providers, they will become expensive. And especially because the cost of running an LLM is also insanely high. I'm probably just like you reading these stories, not only how much it costs to run the servers of these LLMs, but also to hire the right engineers. We're talking about prices that are normally being done in football, between football clubs. There are now engineers and scientists are being bought from one company towards another. And those costs, they need to come from some place and somewhere, and not only from individual end consumers, but also from the companies that want to build solutions with AI infused tooling or features.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the most overhyped AI buzzword in your view at the moment?
Agentic AI agents. So you have automations, so where you automate a process and you're making use of an LLM, and you have agents who are really an assistant and using different large language models to provide you with the best answer for the task that you want. And just automating a process with a little bit of AI in it is not an agent.
Right. Okay. But they're being passed off as agentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because AI, well, first, everything that you label AI makes a lot of money, and everything that you label agentic AI, that makes even more money because marketeers like shiny stuff, and they will buy it. Yeah.
What would you say is the most underrated metric that e-commerce leaders should be tracking?
Time to value. So we're in a time of experimenting with new technologies, and this is really great. But I see use cases being pursued for weeks, months, sometimes even a year, with a lot of time and money going in that, but not actually measuring what is the time from the first experiment, especially in the world of AI, towards actual value, and making sure that you get better in that or have a cutoff time. So time to value is the most underrated metric regarding AI.
Interesting. And I imagine you do quite a bit of research in your own time to stay as on top of AI as possible. Is there a particular non-tech book which has kind of shaped your view of AI, particularly like use cases and where it might take us?
So there are a lot of books that help me throughout the way, but I think the book that I most often get back to is actually a Dutch book. So I'm not sure if there's an English version, but ChatGPT can help you probably. And it's has the title "Strategy is Equal to Execution." And I think that also has a little bit to do with the time to value. People always want to make things perfect, and their own perfectionism is standing in the way to through innovation and through value. And this is a book with really easy models and systems, also models that are already made in the 80s by strategists, innovation scientists, etc. But it works really well. So if I get stuck somewhere, then I grab that book, and it helps me to get anything further.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us on the podcast. I personally have learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure that the audience will as well. So that we really appreciate your time, Sander. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. See you soon.